In a peculiar room, businessman Joe awakens to the disorienting sight of a mill and is immediately gripped by nausea as he grapples with the realization that he has no recollection of how he ended up there. With his phone missing, towering walls surrounding him, and a heavy, locked door as his only exit, Joe begins to panic. Shouting for help, he is met with a mysterious voice emanating from an air vent, instructing him to be silent. The voice, belonging to a fellow captive, reveals that Joe has been drugged, leading to days of impending depression due to side effects. The stranger warns of a challenging day ahead and then abruptly ceases communication, returning to his unknown duties. Undeterred, Joe attempts to scale the walls without success, teetering on the edge of a breakdown. As he despairs, a whistle pierces the air, and Joe witnesses someone dropping sustenance through a door slot. Seizing the opportunity, he pleads for assistance, citing a pregnant wife in need, but is met with callous indifference as the provider callously closes the slot, injuring Joe's hand. Nightfall prompts Joe to improvise a makeshift bandage using his tie and begrudgingly accept the offered sustenance. Suddenly, a light illuminates the wall, and an artificial intelligence voice welcomes Joe to something cryptically termed advanced career training. Unresponsive to inquiries, the AI leaves behind only a few enigmatic numbers after its logo disappears. Perplexed, Joe questions the sanity of the situation, only to learn from his neighboring captive that the machine functions, not for the benefit of employees, and the numbers count down to an ominous midnight event, the nature of which remains shrouded in secrecy. Despite Joe's pleas for clarity, his fellow workers vehemently oppose his inquiries, yearning for a night's rest. The neighbor unveils a chilling truth to Joe, disclosing that the voices around them belong to employees who have been banished to this ominous place for displeasing the company. To Joe's astonishment, he learns that this dystopian reality is a sinister facet of Mallard, the very company he had once worked for. Overwhelmed, Joe attempts to rest, only to be rudely awakened at midnight by distressing noises. As Joe listens, he discovers that an unfortunate employee is being taken away for termination, the agonizing screams revealing the grim nature of the process. Desperate to escape the sounds, Joe covers his ears while the AI voice chillingly claims that this macabre ritual is part of a harmonious path to well-being. The following morning, a guard delivers more sustenance, coupled with a stern warning about maintaining pristine cells to avoid punishment. Joe is directed to discard trash in a repulsive toilet hole tucked in the corner, a task he reluctantly complies with to sidestep trouble. While doing so, Joe makes a disturbing discovery, a skull hidden beneath the grime. The neighbor confirms the unsettling truth that employees have perished here before, a revelation Joe vehemently rejects, questioning the plausibility of a powerful company concealing so many deaths. In a shocking turn, the neighbor reveals that such dire consequences were buried in the fine print of the contracts the employees signed, contracts that nobody bothered to read, giving the company their implicit consent. Amidst the turmoil, the AI interjects, engaging Joe, who defiantly voices his discontent, arguing that after a decade of service, he deserves better. His impassioned rant prompts an alarm to ring, coercing Joe into silence as the AI ominously declares that today marks the commencement of his advanced career training seminar. Joe's descent into a nightmarish work environment unfolds as he discovers the rationale behind his relocation. The company attributes his declining productivity and excessive personal time to the department's waning performance, presenting his new role as a means of redemption. The stringent work schedule begins at 6 a.m. and concludes at 10 p.m., allowing Joe meager personal time in between. Tasked with pushing a burdensome mill, he earns points for each full revolution, with a daily quota set at 50 points. Failure to meet this target incurs punishment, and the employee with the fewest points faces termination, regardless of meeting the quota. Desperation sets in as Joe, mindful of his pregnant wife at home, pleads for release. However, his neighbor dismisses the idea, asserting that the company remains indifferent, and escape is an elusive concept until the designated time arrives. Advised to focus on survival, Joe reluctantly engages with the grueling task at hand. The archaic and rusty machinery makes the initial revolutions a daunting physical challenge for Joe. Upon achieving the first milestone, the AI congratulates him, interjecting celebratory ads. Throughout the day, Joe labors under the unrelenting sun, subsisting on a meager food supply. The AI compounds his toil by incessantly playing ads, a stark reminder of the corporate machinery he now serves. As night descends, Joe is haunted by the termination of today's unfortunate employee, masked by the AI's attempt to drown out the grim reality with more advertisements. The following morning, over breakfast, Joe engages in conversation with his neighbor, questioning the purpose of a quota when termination remains a looming consequence. His neighbor, well acquainted with Mallard's demanding standards, explains that good enough doesn't suffice for the relentless corporation. Intriguingly, he cautions Joe against divulging his impressive quota of 100 from the previous day, warning that others may attempt to surpass him. The neighbor imparts survival advice, emphasizing the delicate balance between working hard enough to endure but not so hard as to raise expectations permanently. As Joe embarks on the day's quota, thoughts of his wife, Kate, and the house provided by the company for their new life linger in his mind. Recalling Kate's initial reservations about the grand and expensive residence, Joe reassures her that it's the result of his tireless efforts. However, a memory resurfaces of Kate expressing concern about Joe prioritizing work over family, especially with the impending arrival of their baby. Returning to the present, Joe completes the workday with an impressive quota of 150, only to be startled by a knock on the door. Initially fearful, Joe complies with the guard's directive to strip before entering the corridor. There, he endures a brief dousing of water and a fleeting moment with soap before being summarily sent back to his confined quarters. As the relentless days unfold, Joe endures the grueling monotony of the mill, the oppressive sun making the task all the more tiresome. Conversations with his neighbor reveal the futility of their labor, as the mill serves no purpose beyond keeping them occupied. In the oppressive heat, Joe's plea for more water is met with a harsh reality. Mallard provides only enough sustenance to keep them alive. Desperation sets in as the neighbor suggests an unthinkable solution: collecting and filtering urine to obtain more water. Disturbed by the idea, Joe refuses, even as the neighbor insists that Mallard is testing their limits. Thoughts of his wife, Kate, and the promises he made to work harder to secure their future haunt, Joe. He recalls the day Kate, worried about hospital bills, decided to return to work despite the risks to the baby. Exhausted at the end of the workday, Joe achieves an outstanding quota of 370, only to discover a mysterious carving on the mill handle reading, Alex. Curiosity leads him to learn that Alex is the only person who successfully escaped. In a surprising turn, Joe receives a seemingly special gift for his exceptional performance: a pen with his name on it. However, his protest against the impracticality of the pen leads to a revelation. Mallard has increased his daily quota to an impossible 370 revolutions. Furious and exhausted, Joe confronts the AI, displaying his wounded hands and explaining the impossibility of meeting the new standard. The AI dismissively claims that humans need a push to progress. In defiance, Joe hurls the pen at the wall, triggering a penalty system. Each missed quota now doubles the required revolutions, leaving Joe with the daunting task of 740. Despite a valiant effort, Joe succumbs to exhaustion, prompting the neighbor's outrage. The AI declares Joe's failure to meet the daily quota, providing an opportunity for Joe to question the penalty system. As the situation intensifies, the unraveling reality of Mallard's merciless demands pushes Joe closer to the brink. In a desperate bid to meet his increasingly impossible quotas, Joe faces a new level of torment orchestrated by the AI. Threatening to kidnap his wife, Kate, the AI coerces Joe into committing to the unattainable targets. The addition of a disconcerting red light and haunting hallucinations exacerbates Joe's mental anguish as he grapples with the relentless demands of the mill. Driven by the hallucinations' mention of Kate and the baby, Joe summons the strength to barely meet the quota within the allotted time. The AI removes the penalty, only to provide a hollow token, a fleeting video of Kate and their newborn. Overwhelmed by the realization that he's missed crucial moments, Joe harbors a newfound determination to escape. Seeking information on Alex's successful departure, Joe discovers a concealed blind spot in the wall. Armed with a pen, he diligently digs day after day, relentlessly working toward freedom. Eventually, Joe squeezes through the hole, only to be apprehended by the guard and forcibly returned to the oppressive room. Facing the consequences, the AI imposes an astronomical quota of 1,000 revolutions and brutally breaks the neighbor's leg. The neighbor, a former IT worker, reveals the algorithmic nature of their predicament, asserting that reasoning with the AI is futile. Undeterred, Joe contemplates a daring plan. If everyone refuses to work, they might collectively defy the algorithm, sparing them from the grim fate of daily penalties and terminations. Undeterred by the perceived dangers, Joe, fueled by a sense of desperation, takes a bold stance against the oppressive corporate system. Climbing atop the mill, he passionately delivers a speech decrying the futile nature of hard work within the company. With conviction, he emphasizes that refusing to work doesn't equate to death. Inspired by Joe's defiance, the other employees join in a collective refusal to engage in senseless labor. Amid the chants of rebellion, Joe believes he has triumphed, only to be confronted by a grim reality as the AI announces that anyone without points at day's end faces termination. Panic ensues among the employees, who hastily resume their tasks, deaf to Joe's pleas for unity. In a pivotal moment, the neighbor reveals himself as Alex, the one who had successfully escaped before being recaptured. Acknowledging the impending end, Alex confides in Joe, expressing regret for not inciting destruction upon the company during his first escape. As the guard takes Alex away for termination, Joe bids a tearful farewell. The following morning, the AI attempts to motivate Joe with a short video showcasing Kate and their now walking baby. However, instead of gratitude, Joe erupts in a torrent of anger, hurling insults at the company that has stripped away everything from him during the agonizing months in captivity. In a shocking turn of events, the AI, displeased with Joe's defiance, decides to terminate him, initiating a macabre scene in a room filled with indifferent onlookers. As the guard prepares a lethal injection, contemplating the potential freedom of Joe's home and wife upon his death, an enraged Joe retaliates, splattering blood across the dispassionate witnesses. The AI announces the guard's failure and, paradoxically, promotes Joe to level 9 as he becomes the executor of his termination. In a moment of clarity, Joe resists the descent into monstrous actions orchestrated by the company, abruptly halting the violent assault on the guard. Disturbed by the realization of what he almost became, Joe declares his refusal to let the company dehumanize him. In a surprising twist, he quits the twisted simulation. Abruptly, Joe blinks back to reality, finding himself in the familiar office with a machine connected to his head. The nightmarish experience was, in fact, the company's advanced career training simulation. A coworker resembling the guard explains that Joe had volunteered for the program, undergoing what felt like an extended period, but was only 60 minutes. Joe discovers that his stagnation in level 8 wasn't due to incompetence but a lack of challenge. The simulation revealed his exceptional productivity and leadership skills, earning him a long-awaited promotion to level 9. As he disconnects from the machine, Joe is ushered into his new office, greeted by a more amiable AI. However, the haunting visions of the simulated ordeal linger, leaving him with PTSD. In a small, almost claustrophobic office, Joe is presented with a non-disclosure agreement, prompting his signature to protect his wife. A call to Kate, filled with tears and relief, further solidifies his determination. Joe, driven by the trauma of the simulated experience, vows to burn the company to the ground, promising to dismantle the deceptive institution that subjected him to the harrowing ordeal.